This video talks about game difficulty in video game development. This can be absolutely crucial to get right for player enjoyment, and I'll give you lots of tips in this video that you can use. If game difficulty levels are too easy for players, it's at risk of being boring and the game abandoned. If it's too hard, players can get frustrated and move on to an easier game. The skill and ability of players massively varies. When players play your game, their skill and ability improve with time, and so the difficulty may have to increase just the right amount for each player to continue to enjoy the game. If the game doesn't get a little harder, the game player may get bored, and if the game gets harder too fast, the player may get frustrated. If I'm honest, I personally find that most mobile games these days are too easy for me, making them dull and boring. I find that correct game difficulty levels really are an underlooked issue. However, saying this, you may not have to increase the difficulty in your games if there's enough variety and interesting new aspects for players, such as discovery of new locations or the introduction of new weapons, characters or enemies. One game that has high praise for correct game difficulty is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. The game's not too hard or too easy. It has a dynamic difficulty system that adjusts the enemy strength and variety based on the player's progression and actions. The game also has a lot of freedom and creativity, allowing the player to approach the game in different ways, such as using the environment, the physics, or the items. The game also has a hard mode that adds more challenges to those who want it. By contrast, Superman 64 is widely considered to be one of the worst games ever made. On top of terrible controls, boring and repetitive gameplay, and a poorly written story, it's considered too hard for most people, with unenjoyable, difficult obstacles that cause frustration rather than enjoyment of overcoming challenges. The traditional method for adjusting for varying player abilities is to give easy, normal and hard settings for players to pick. This can be very helpful, however players usually have no idea which to pick, and the majority go for the normal default setting, whether it's right for them or not. There's no guarantee that the players will manually adjust the settings if they need to during the game. A dynamic approach is increasingly popular with developers, programming their games to analyze the player's performance, behavior and preferences to adjust the difficulty of the game. You have to be careful with this, as players may not want an obvious dynamic approach, especially if you're making a multiplayer game, giving one player an advantage over another player. I used a dynamic approach for my game Scapegoat. You control a goat running around a 2D dungeon and come up against a variety of silly animal enemies. If you die, you have to restart the level. I programmed that the more often you die, the stronger your health is and the less damage that is done to you by enemy animals, and vice versa if you're doing well, so not to make the game too easy. This approach has to be almost invisible, or it can annoy players who feel less of a thrill if they know the game will get easier if they don't try hard enough. My approach was fairly basic. It would be better for game developers to subtly adjust various multiple components, including enemy skill, speed, accuracy and intelligence, so it feels more natural and not obvious that you're helping the player or making it more difficult for them. The dynamic approach may need to have enough effect on the game for players who are either naturally super skilled or very poor at video games. Now, you could ignore those on the edges of ability or adopt a dual system by providing both traditional and dynamic approaches to game difficulty. The most important key to ensure correct game difficulty is through game testing. There's no way around this. Whether you like it or not, we all have assumptions and personal preferences that will interfere with making the best video game difficulty for others. When I tested my game Goat vs Mushroom on my first colleague, I was astounded at how bad he was at it. Everything I thought was intuitive and easy, he found difficult and unintuitive. This, as well as testing on other people, was imperative to making sure the difficulty was just right. Many games need to consider how difficulty is paced. A well-paced RPG or shooting game needs to alternate between being slow and easy and at other times fast and more difficult to create a contrast that enhances gameplay experience. One method of handling players who need extra help is to provide opportunity for them to trade a bit of time and effort to level up, gain better gear, armor or weapons by visiting locations to kill enemies, or spend a bit of time mining for resources or playing some side games if you have time to develop extra levels and content. Some developers entice less skilled or time-poor players with in-app purchases to level up in gear and resources. Whilst this can be a useful source of revenue, it can cause worse reviews for your game, annoying players who feel they have to spend money in order to win or progress in the game. Some genres, such as real-time strategy games, can benefit from an approach of counting the player's APM or actions per minute. In general, the more APM, the better the player, and the faster or more skillful you need to make the enemies behave. Before making your games, it's important to think how your game will feel for low, medium and high skilled players, and how you may choose to adjust game difficulty for everyone. You may decide that your game's not going to be designed for every different skill level, and that's fine. Otherwise you may compromise the core enjoyability of the game. I make relatively simple games as a hobby in my spare time, so I don't choose to add very complex dynamic difficulty. However, if I had more time, I would do so in some of my games. Perhaps the most important thing is to get others to test your game so you really know that the difficulty is just right for the best player satisfaction. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and check out some of the other videos I've made on game development, and maybe add a comment about how you find game difficulty in your games.